This is Lynn from the Humber Arboretum. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of my backyard garden. I'll highlight a few of the plants and talk about the way I tried to design the garden. This plant is a scented geranium. It's supposed to smell like citronella. The reason I have it beside the barbecue is to try and repel mosquitoes that might come to bother my husband while he's cooking my dinner. This part of my garden is on the north side of my house. It always experiences shade. It never gets any direct sun. So I've tried to choose plants that grow in the shade along here, and in particular I have chosen a few wildflowers. This one here, this is epimedium. It's finished blooming right now. It blooms in May. I love the delicate leaves on it. The other name for epimedium is bishop's cap because the blooms have that kind of an unusual look to them. Over here I have Solomon's seal, and you can see underneath there are some lovely little flowers drooping down. The bees particularly like this one. It's a great woodland shade plant. This is a new introduction to my garden. I'm not sure how it's going to do. It is a flowering raspberry. It is a wild plant. It's a native plant. It has beautiful magenta colored flowers, but the fruit is not of any significance. It's just, it's got pretty leaves and pretty flowers. So I'm going to see how it does in my native garden in the back here. This is brunella. You have to be careful. I love the beautiful blue flowers in the early spring. You have to be careful of this plant because it does seed itself very profusely. So once the blooms are just about finished, I remove all of the flower spikes and just leave the foliage. And even the foliage is very nice with the speckles on it. So I want to make sure that it doesn't just take over my garden. My neighbor has a large cedar hedge, which is lovely. And however, so down at the foot of the cedar hedge, I've planted hostas, and they are just coming up. They're very slow to come up in the spring. They're coming up, they do bloom, and they will fill in this area of the garden. This little feature beside the patio has a rose of Sharon. This got beaten up a little bit in the ice storm, but it seems to have survived. Every year it produces beautiful white flowers with a dark red center. These are columbine. The columbine, they tend to drift around my garden. They seed themselves and they appear in various places. Sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're purple, and I just let them grow wherever they like to. And underneath here I've got a plant called spiderwort, Trandescantia, and it has little flowers that are very much like a trillium, except that they have different colors. I have blue ones, magenta ones, white ones throughout the gardens. You'll notice the layers here. I've got a tall shrub, I've got a medium-sized flower plant, and then I have a lower plant. Throughout the garden I've tried to create different heights, layers, and that is to attract, or to at least make it more comfortable for animals and birds, insects, that kind of thing. It just makes it a more friendly atmosphere for the visitors to my garden. I also have water here. I keep always water during the summertime for the birds and the insects to have a drink of water, particularly on a hot day. They need to make sure that they stay hydrated. So this corner of my garden is where I have the compost pile. You can see it's got a lot of grass clippings in it right now. I put all of my yard waste into that and generate my compost to fertilize my gardens. These are some more Solomon's seal. You can see the little white blooms on them. This is forget-me-not, and forget-me-not is an annual, and it seeds itself. So I let it seed itself. Whenever it is where I don't want it to be, I can always remove it, but it is a lovely blue flower at the beginning of the spring. This part of my garden really shows off some layers. I've got Japanese anemone as a low growing plant. I've got this beautiful bridal wreath spirea in bloom right now as a medium height. It's very dense, so it's a great place for animals to hide. I have the Saskatoon berry at the top, which provides berries in the later season for the birds. The robins really love that. And I have Amur maple here, and the seeds from that the birds also like. So again, I've got layers different, and my neighbor has planted cedars in behind. So this is an excellent area for birds to shelter and for insects to come and pollinate. This area of my garden has this plant. Actually, when we moved in, this plant was here. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it is, but it has a lovely scent. It's a perennial geranium. It's in bloom currently. It has a lovely scent when the sun shines on it from the leaves. Beside it I have phlox. Those phlox will be blooming later in the summer, and they have a lovely perfume as well. And behind it I have an antique rose that blooms a pale yellow, but it has a very strong fragrance. I really enjoy plants that have a strong fragrance, just to come out in the garden and enjoy the scent as I stand here. This is a Siberian iris. It is currently in bloom, or in bud. It should be in bloom very soon. This lovely dogwood is called a pagoda dogwood. It gets nice white flowers in June, and the berries are very attractive for the birds. This one is really just a non-native wildflower, and it seeds itself in my garden. I call it Dame's Rocket. What I do is I let it have this showy bloom at this time of the year, and it makes too many seeds. So what I do is when the flowers are finished, I go through the garden and I remove most of them and leave a few strategic ones so that the seeds will drop and provide me with flowers again the following year. This is another perennial geranium. In this case, it has very, very dark, almost black. It's a dark purple flower, almost black flowers. It's a perennial, and it also seeds itself, so it moves around my garden. I always appreciate plants that look after themselves. So that's a perennial geranium. This large shrub here is an elderberry. When I planted it originally, my hope was that it would produce lots of berries for the birds, but it doesn't seem to do very well in terms of producing berries, but it does provide great shelter for the birds to be perched in. And another layer be an intermediate layer near the large trees. Got a hosta coming up in the middle. The side here is, this is just a miniature flag iris. And this is one of my well-loved plants here. This is called goat's beard. And it will have large white plumes of flowers. It's just in bud right now. So can't really, you have to use your imagination on this one, but it is a lovely, lovely plant. This shrub is called a jet bead shrub. The reason for that, you can see that it has little white flowers. It's just about finished its blooming stage. And when the flowers go to seed, you'll see very dark black bead-shaped seeds. And a jet bead is from the Victorian ages. You've probably heard the term jet black, and the jet beads were formed from a form of fossilized coal. So they were a black stone. So this is a jet bead plant. This shrub is called a beauty bush. And believe me, when it is in bloom, it really is beautiful. It's just beginning, the flowers are just beginning to come out. When it is in full bloom, it's just a cascade of light pink flowers. Below it, I have a nettle, which is now blooming. It's got very unusual flowers. The small bees like that. And over here, I have Virginia waterleaf. That one is a native plant, and it is lovely. The bees, there are honeybees, there are bumblebees that come to this, and it makes prolific seeds, and because of all the pollinators that come to it, it's a lovely native plant. Behind it, I have a small gooseberry bush, but most of the time the chipmunks get the gooseberries before I do. This view of my garden just illustrates the layers that are present in the garden. You can see low plants, medium-sized shrubs, and tall trees. That kind of biodiversity gives opportunities for nesting birds and birds that are foraging to go on the ground or in the shrubs or in the tall trees for whatever they're looking for, insects or pollinating plants, whatever. Gives them just lots of opportunity and biodiversity. Beside the Virginia waterleaf at the base of my locust tree, I have this centaurea. It's also called knapweed. It's not easy to see, but right at the moment there is a hoverfly and an ant visiting this plant, so this flower. So those would be the pollinators of this particular variety. The bumblebees prefer the Virginia waterleaf. You probably recognize the yellow flag iris. I have lots of those. Occasionally I do get iris borer in these plants. However, it's interesting because whenever I do, the skunks generally dig them up and make sure that they control the iris borer. Beside it is a lovely bush. This is a deutzia, and all of those blooms cascading there. It's not easy to see, but there are small pollinators, small bees that visit these. There's one right there, a small bee, another one down there. There are quite a few little bees that enjoy those flowers at this time of the year. Behind me is my vegetable garden. I don't have very much. I just have tomatoes, garlic, sage, parsley, and I'm trying to establish some thyme down in the garden as well. I hope you have enjoyed this tour of my backyard garden. I get a lot of enjoyment out of spending time out here, enjoying the flowers, watching them grow, and taking care of them. I also enjoy watching the birds and the insects coming to my flowers and trees.